It's Judy Courier, and want to welcome you to our first virtual awards ceremony. These are really unprecedented times, and but we really thought that it was important to stop for a moment and recognize the contributions of many people in our group. And you know, I think this past year has been pretty remarkable in many ways, and we have some really special awards today. But before we start with the awards, I think that, you know, we need to pause and recognize the work of so many people in the network at our sites, from study coordinators to people involved in data, and particularly I want to say our lab techs and people who are involved in laboratories. All of us have been pulled in many directions during this COVID pandemic. Investigators and working on vaccine studies where we're starting to see some really exciting early results. But also at the sites, in the labs, at many of our sites, people have been pulled into their testing programs and have just pivoted, just really rising to the occasion, like was done to address HIV over the last 30 plus years. So I think that while we're recognizing some extraordinary investigators today, I did want to take a moment to really thank everyone who's been involved in the ACTG for all the work that's been happening in this past year. And before, if we could go to the next slide, before we get into the awards, I wanted to give Peter Kim, who's the director of the therapeutics branch of the Division of AIDS, a moment to say a few words. And Peter's really led the efforts that have allowed the ACTG to be involved in the COVID response in the ACTIV-2 trial. So I'm going to turn it over to Kevin, and then we'll move into the awards.
Thanks, Judy. So I just want to thank, first of all, the ACTG and Judy and Joe for inviting me to participate in this award program. I think it's really a great honor for me to be here. For those that don't know me, I'm Peter Kim. I'm the director of the Therapeutics Research Program at the Division of AIDS. Sarah Reed was my predecessor, and I took over for her, I think almost 2.5, maybe even almost 3 years now. So time flies when you're having fun. I also want to just echo the sentiments that that Judy has expressed regarding the ACTG. I mean, I think we all realize that we are truly in extraordinary times. And one of the really the great things about working with the ACTG is that it seems that whenever we find ourselves in extraordinary times, and NIAID needs a group of investigators to take up the call to figure out what we need to do in terms of therapeutics, we call on the ACTG. And it's just been a really fantastic experience just working with ACTG leadership, but not only the leadership, but all the members of the ACTG. I mean, I think Judy expressed it well, that these are very trying times. We're all not only trying to put everything we have into developing, you know, as quickly as possible, at warp speed as we talk about therapeutics for COVID-19, but we're doing it with the limitations of the pandemic that is upon us. We really understand that people are strapped not only for time, but they're strapped for resources, and that applies to all of the investigators, the clinical coordinators, and technical staff that are involved with the work of the ACTG. And I just would like to wholeheartedly thank you on behalf of not only NIAID, but the whole of NIH, because the work that we are doing is not only supported by NIAID, but and Dr. Fauci himself, but also Dr. Francis Collins. And they've written letters to us supporting what we're doing. They are keeping track of what we're doing, keeping very close tabs, and they're also very thankful for the efforts that we're putting into this. But I'd also like to just take the opportunity to thank the ACTG for the great work that you've done over the years in advancing TB, hepatitis, immune inflammation, and of course, HIV clinical trials. I mean, I think the ACTG has been a cornerstone in the global infrastructure for advancing critical research having to do with HIV treatments, therapies, strategies, and the co-infections associated with them. And I think this is really a fantastic time for us to be able to get together and recognize those that have gone before us that allowed to set the standards for what it really means to be an ACTG member and to do the work of the ACTG in the quality that it's being done with. And also for us to, of course, celebrate and thank those who embody those very virtues today as you carry on your work. So with that, I'll just say, I just want to thank you on behalf of the NIH and NIAF for not only the past work, but the present work. And of course, we look forward to the future work that the ACTG will do in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Thanks so much. Okay, we're going to move now into the awards. And the first award is honoring the memory of Kevin Robertson. Kevin was a dedicated and compassionate ACTG investigator who died last June at the age of 62 after a long illness. He was a professor of neurology and director of the AIDS Neurological Center at the University of North Carolina. He came to UNC as a faculty member in 1988 after completing a PhD at Oklahoma State University. Within the ACTG, Kevin played many important roles. He was chair of the neurology committee and led efforts within our group to expand the evaluation of neurocognitive function into international settings. I think he visited almost every international site and worked closely with investigators to ensure that these measures were implemented. He was a mentor to many and a great friend and a magnet for new investigators coming into the group to help them find opportunities to bring their outside knowledge about neurology and psychology into the work that we're doing in the ACTG. Kevin was unflappable, persistent, and continued to work really up until the last minutes of his life. He was just remarkably just dedicated to what he was doing, even as his health was failing. And he always spoke slowly and carefully, but he also listened intently and made sure that the people around him were heard. We miss Kevin really terribly. And in honor of his contributions and his memory, we created the Kevin Robertson Memorial Award. And it's intended to recognize ACTG investigators who exemplify his compassion and collegiality and his commitment to junior investigators. And importantly, it acknowledges people who bring outside expertise into the award or into the group. And these are people who, have training outside of infectious diseases, but are so essential to the work that we do in the ACTG. So awardees will have demonstrated generous, accessible, and open leadership and mentorship, and enriched and enhanced the HIV/AIDS research by applying their outside expertise. Now, before I announce this year's awardee, the first awardee, I would like to give Diane Rausch, the director of the Division of AIDS at the National Institutes of Mental Health, an opportunity to say a few words. She worked closely with Kevin over many years. Dr. Rausch?
Great, thanks. Thanks, Judy, and thanks for the opportunity to speak in memory of Kevin. I've known him, had known him probably since the very beginning, early in 88, and he was a very unique, special person. He was a longtime partner of DAIDS and NIMH in the funding of ACTG, and Dr. Robertson has been critical in representing and promoting the research objectives of NIMH as an investigator and member of the ACTG. He played a major role in the development of Protocol A5199, the International Neurological Study, a standalone study for participants of A5175, which expanded neurological and neuropsychological evaluation of the effects of HIV treatment to many in low and middle income countries. Kevin personally trained many of the investigators in these countries in these assessments, and as such created an invaluable capacity to conduct clinical neuroscience research in the countries of which we still profit these days. In addition, as Judy said, he was chair of the newly created neurology work group of the ACTG in the early 2000s, which continues to be a critical vehicle through which the priorities of NIMH are represented in the ACTG. And on a more personal note, like I said, I've known him almost from the beginning of his career and mine. And he was a great colleague, and he was always enthusiastic. When 5175 started, we talked about how important it would be to put neurology and neuropsychological assessments into the low and middle income countries to really see what the worldwide burden was. Since most of what we had known was really in high income countries. And he did it enthusiastically and tirelessly and constantly kept us in touch and up to speed with what was going on. And through all of the work I did with him, he was always pleasant to be around and a real gentleman. And I really appreciated knowing him. So I'm really happy to see this award and keep his memory alive. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we had many terrific nominees for this award, and I'm pleased to announce that the first awardee for the Kevin Robertson Memorial Award is Serena Spudich. Serena is trained in both internal medicine and neurology, and received her training at Stanford and UCSF, and then also did training at Mass General. Next slide. She also in the ACTG has played many roles. She basically, after being at UCSF, she now is at Yale and is a professor of neurology and chief of the Division of Neuroinfectious Diseases. She's also got, looks like 2 different endowed chairs and has been an incredible asset to the ACTG. You can go on to the next slide. Her role in the ACTG is highlighted here, including being former chair of the neurology committee and also steady co-chair for this important trial of ART intensification. She's been an investigator on the 5321 study and on the important sub-study, and has worked extensively in Thailand as well on work in CNS HIV. So her role as a mentor to many young investigators in the group was highlighted in her nomination. And I think she just embodies so many of the qualities of Kevin Robertson. And I'm really pleased to present her with the first Kevin Robertson Memorial Award. So I don't know if Dr. Spudich is available on the call here to say a few words, and I'm sorry about the dogs barking.
I am available, Judy. So I'll say a few words. I'll try to stay without crying. So I'm incredibly honored to receive this award, and you know, many of you know that not only was Kevin a wonderful colleague, but also an incredibly special person in my life. And I counted him as a true friend. And I think I didn't realize until after Kevin passed away how many people in the world felt the same way about Kevin. I think many of us felt that we had a special light shining on us from knowing Kevin, our interactions with Kevin. And the fact that I would be given this award, first of all, is incredibly moving to me for that reason. But I also want everyone here to know that exactly these features that are highlighted in this award are the reasons that I am here with you today, because of Kevin. So Kevin was the first person who suggested that I join the ACTG, and I looked him in the eye and said, "That's crazy. I don't have anything to offer. I'm just starting out." And he said, "You have so much to offer. You can do it. You should join." And then a few years later, he said, "Serena, I want you to apply to be vice chair of the neurology committee." And I said, "That's ridiculous. I just got my first grant. I'm totally inexperienced." And he said, "You would be great. You can do this." And I think that this is exactly what's so special about Kevin. What was so special about Kevin is he believed in other people. He saw the best in other people. And he really was somebody who was encouraging and enabling to others. This was true for me. This was true for everybody on the ACTG committee. I feel that when he led the committee, he would pause and invite input from people. He would ask for comments. The kind of graciousness that Diane mentioned was just the embodiment of his character. And I think he respected and cared for everyone's opinions. And this is why he was such a successful investigator, including in the international settings, including working with the community. So he truly cared for people and wanted to know what they had to say and enabled them, gave them the knowledge, gave them the skills to do things. I think that's something that if I'm receiving this award, it's because I'm here with you because of Kevin, and also I've tried in my own career to embody those same values. And I love working with young people. I love working with colleagues. And much of the way I try to treat people is trying to emulate the way that Kevin was. So I'm going to end with something. A few years ago, a number of us were in a meeting in Italy, and it was such a wonderful meeting, and we had so much great science and such wonderful connections that I emailed some colleagues afterwards, and I said, you know, my husband was really commenting on how well we all seem to get along and how nice we are all together. And this is what Kevin replied. He said, "We feel the same way." And by the way, Stacy was at the meeting as well. Stacy, I'm so glad you're on the call today and can hear this wonderful tribute to Kevin. He said, "We feel the same way. We spend so much of our time in our working lives, and when we surround ourselves with wonderful people, we have such an enriched experience and live a better life." So I hope we can all remember that. I think we all benefit from that. And I'm thankful to be in the ACTG and to have these wonderful colleagues. And I so appreciate receiving this wonderful award. Thank you.
Thank you, Serena. So well deserved. And Stacy, thank you so much for sharing Kevin with all of us and for being with us today during this award ceremony. Okay, now I think we'll move on to the next award, the Charles Vanderhorst Humanitarian Award. And this will be presented by Dr. Ian Zani, the International Vice Chair for the ACTG.
Thank you, Judy. I'm going to keep my video off just because I'm worried about bandwidth. Professor Charles Vanderhorst Humanitarian Award comes again in great memory of a person whose untimely death on the 14th of June 2019 was a shock to all of the members of the ACTG. A loving husband and father, close and dependable friend, outstanding collaborator and mentor, activist for the disadvantaged, pillar of the community at home and internationally. His influence was measured and felt by all of us and will be sorely missed. Charlie touched many of our lives, particularly as a mentor, supervisor, and activist, particularly in the international research settings of Malawi and South Africa. As professor of medicine at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, Charlie worked passionately on the front lines of the HIV epidemic, both in the United States and in Africa, starting with his compassionate care and advocacy for the first AIDS patients and making important contributions to research that has made HIV/AIDS a preventable and treatable disease. In an extract of a poem written by Dr. David Bronstein, I think I can sum up the sense that most of us had with the untimely death of Charlie. It's entitled, "Oh Charlie." Oh Charlie, oh Charlie, oh Charlie. These words certainly common to many of us here that we have said aloud or thought to ourselves with a myriad of meanings determined by intonation alone, signaling amazement, appreciation, bemusement, sympathy, and love. And now, despite fierce resistance, profound loss. You died as you lived, with intense energy, drive, and passion for all things you pursued, succeeding and excelling in almost all endeavors you jumped into. For we who remain, for we who loved you, there is an unending sharing of Charlie's stories that will inspire us to act, that will make us more generous, that will, of course, make us laugh and cry and say in pure love, "Oh, Charlie." So I kept these words relatively short because we found, and maybe Aisha, you can move the slides along, a remarkable extract from history, and we'll let Charlie speak for himself.
age 61 that I didn't decide to go into HIV research. HIV came to me. So I began taking care of HIV patients in New York City in the early 1980s, long before we knew there was this virus or had a test, an antibody test to diagnose it, long before the ACTG was created in 1986. So what I did is HIV came to me and I didn't run away from it. The good thing about medicine is that we never sit on our rear ends accepting what's going on. We always want to find new answers, new treatments, new ways to prevent diseases of any type. And the ACTG was one of the first large government-funded, as opposed to beholden to the pharmaceutical industry, one of the first large groups to really put a scientific structure on research. The most profound breakthrough in HIV research is without a doubt the realization that if you gave 3 or more antiretroviral drugs simultaneously, you could completely suppress the virus and allow for the immune system to recover, the CD4 counts to rise to normal or near normal, and theoretically allow patients with HIV to live a normal lifespan. That's clearly the biggest thing we learned, and the ACTG was instrumental in realizing that. Since 2000, I've been working in Africa and at our sites in Malawi, Zambia, and South Africa. And so my interest is what are the best regimens to both treat HIV and treat the complications of HIV in terms of the opportunistic infections and AIDS-associated malignancies. What's the best way to diagnose them, to treat them? It's cheaper to do than we do in the United States. That's less toxic. What's also, which is many might not see as a true goal of the ACTG, but I think is crucial, is that we know that at each step of the process of diagnosing and treating HIV or preventing mother-to-child transmission, whether in the United States or in Africa, each step there is dropout, unless we make it so that there's no loss to follow-up. But if you start out with 100 HIV-infected patients, you end up with 100 HIV patients on treatment and suppressed. We're not going to make any really concrete advances in stopping this epidemic. Well, for fun, I am a competitive athlete, and I've done a half-iron triathlon this year. I run the New York Marathon. I've run it several times. I do open water swims. I do all that. I have a wonderful family, wife, and 2 grown daughters, and I'm a political activist. So I was arrested May 6th in the North Carolina legislature protesting the bad laws that our current legislature is doing.
So no one could have spoken better than Charlie in this instance. And I would like to thank Laura Svetsky who joined us today for being on this call and in honor of Charlie. And I'd like to hand over to Joe Eron, who will be making the presentation. Thank you.
Great. Well, I can come off of mute. Thanks, Ian, for making such a moving presentation. We all miss Charlie terribly. Around election time, it gets even more acute, as we like to say. I have the great pleasure of presenting the first Charlie Vanderhorst Humanitarian Award winner. And this, can you advance the slides? This is going to go. The award is, as mentioned, recognizes an ACTG member who exemplifies the ideals that inform Charlie's life, unwavering social justice advocate. And he really did dedicate his career to promoting universal access to HIV research and treatment and care. So the awardee will demonstrate a strong commitment to social justice and the provision of compassionate healthcare for all people living with HIV. And the awardee will promote universal access to HIV research, treatment, and care with a focus on underserved communities, either domestically or internationally. So I have the great honor and privilege of announcing that winner is David Wall from the University of North Carolina. Can we move this slide? I really can't think of a better person to get this award for the first time than David. He like Charlie, is a force. He is, like Charlie, has absolutely boundless energy. And in his mind is always, is this fair? Is this just? Is this equitable, what we're doing? His background is on this slide. He was educated in Boston and New York, and then he went to the Robert Wood Johnson Medical School. He did go to Duke for a while, but we rescued him from Duke. Laura, Charlie's wife, is a senior faculty member, associate dean at Duke. So we like Duke mostly. And then he came here to do his ID fellowship, and I think fell under Charlie's spell, and really is critical to the work we do here, and critical to the work we're doing in the ACTG, especially in this time of COVID. Next slide. He started out as an assistant professor. He was co-director of our HIV services in the Department of Corrections for a while, and he rapidly promoted and was promoted with tenure. He was the service chief on our inpatient service, and he was a panel member on the DHHS guidelines. Next slide. In the ACTG, he's done a lot, both in front of the scenes and kind of behind the scenes, and has been a member of the Underrepresented Populations Committee, where he can help advocate for those who are less fortunate than most of us. Most recently, he's been involved in our COVID response, and his integration, his leadership in integrating the community into our both has COVID and now our much larger study, our Adapt Out COVID A5401, has really been masterful, and his ability to incorporate people and hear them is really, I think, again, Charlie-like. So David, I think this is our last slide, tributing you, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. There you go. Be a Charlie. It says right on there. Be a Charlie. So David, congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Ian. Thanks, Judy. I too, like Serena, will try not to cry. I have to say I'm sincerely grateful to you for creating this award, to the ACTG, to Laura, Sarah, and Anna. This is really an incredible honor, but it's also extremely humbling. I think, despite what was said, there's really so many ways that I am not like Charlie. I'm not tall, I'm barely clinging to 5'7", and Charlie was an extreme extrovert, and I definitely am much more introverted. And few, myself included, really could even think of matching, Charlie's supersized brilliance, his energy, enthusiasm, just his general joy for life, which I think attracted so many of us to him. If there are any of these qualities that I think I share with Charlie, it's totally and absolutely due to imitation. And so for me, this award is not so much really about achievement, but since I heard about this, I've been thinking a lot about the idea that this is really more of a need I feel to move forward and continue to follow, a responsibility to follow Charlie's enduring example. And I hope that people who do receive this award in the future will feel the same way, and that they'll take this as a message to do what Charlie always pushed us to do, which is to do better, be a better clinician or researcher or activist or advocate, or colleague or partner or parent or role model. And to me, it's just a sign to be a better person, just like Charlie. So thanks again. I really am honored.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Laura, for being with us. We so miss Charlie. Thank you. All right. Judy, I think I'm next up to present the John
That's
Kerry
right.
Award.
Yep.
John Kerry was a young investigator in the ACTG and who died suddenly and unexpectedly. And I did not know John, but those who did know him spoke of his passion and enthusiasm and really a very kind of upbeat and I can do this mentality. And so this award's been around for quite some time. If we could go to the next slide. The idea is to honor more junior investigators, or what I think we're supposed to call now early stage investigators, who best exemplify the ideals both of the ACTG and the qualities that Dr. Kerry had. We want our awardees to have made significant contributions for the advancement of knowledge about HIV and its complications in the clinic and lab. And I think we can add, contributing to pandemic response that is the responsibility of all of us. We want our awardees to demonstrate a cooperative spirit with colleagues and a commitment to service through participation in ACTG protocols and committees, and then show that intellectual promise and commitment to advance to a leadership position within the ACTG. So on the next slide, is our list of people who have been John Kerry past awardees. And I think, if anything, this demonstrates our ability to pick out people who really are going to become leaders in our group and honestly to become leaders nationally and internationally. So I think being named a John Kerry awardee really signifies a very special career path within our group. And I think almost all of the people on this slide remain connected to our group in some very, very important way. And I'm super excited to announce the next John Kerry awardee, which is Kara Chu. So Kara is very well trained at Brown University, both for undergraduate and medical school. She got a master's at UCLA and was an ID fellow at UCLA. Next slide. And she's rising in Judy's group. You can see her trajectory. She was a young investigator awardee at CROI and was an invited early stage investigator at the National CFAR meeting just a few years ago. Next slide. And she's really done quite a lot. If we go from the bottom up, she's an author of already 21 peer-reviewed papers. She's been on the hepatitis transformative science group. She's worked on NASH and NAFLD and their focus group. She's chaired, she's been part of several New Works concept sheets, and really most recently, she's become a vice chair, actually along with David Wall, on the Adapt Out COVID study. And she's been a remarkable leader in that very complicated, fast-moving study, A5401. And UCLA, under her leadership, has led enrollment to that study, remarkably enrolling, I think, almost 30 patients, depending on how many they enrolled today, and has been a wonderful leader. She's meticulous, thoughtful, organized, and a true collaborator. And I see very great things for Kara. And I'd like to offer congratulations, Kara. And there's your plaque.
Thank you, Joe, so much for those super kind words. It was a really wonderful surprise to hear about this award, and I've been really grateful to be a part of the ACTG. I've had many mentors within the ACTG. Judy, of course, has been my primary mentor since fellowship, and the ACTG has given me so many opportunities through the New York's concept sheets and DAX and the opportunity to be on the TSGs. I've learned team science from the ACTG, and through that really have learned from all the arms of the ACTG, not just other investigators, but from our community members and from SDAC and our lab colleagues, even data management. So, and then leading up now to our COVID trials, which have really been a whirlwind experience. And I'm so grateful to be part of the amazing Active 2 team led so well by Davey. And it's been a great experience. So thanks for the opportunity.
Congratulations, really well deserved. And so now we're really looking forward to great things from you, no pressure. All right, Judy, back to you.
Okay, congratulations, Kara, and also David. Just remarkable. So let's go on to the next award, which is the Connie Wofsy Award. And go ahead. I'm turning over to the presenter, which I believe.
Good evening.
It's Rosie, yeah. I think.
Rosie, right. Yes, Rosie.
Good evening. Yes, good evening, everyone. I will also keep my video off, bandwidth worries. Can you hear me clearly? Okay.
Yes.
So it's actually a great honor to be presenting this next award, the Constance Wofsy Women's Health Investigator Award, which was established to honor the memory of Connie Wofsy by recognizing investigators who have made significant contributions to the research in HIV-infected women and who embody qualities exemplified by Dr. Wofsy. The awardees would have had to demonstrate ability to mentor junior investigators and to still be involved in caring for HIV-positive women and addressing priority areas within the HIV-infected girls and women. Can you move the slides, please? So this slide shows the past awardees, and as you can see, most of them are still within the network and they're still quite active, with the last one being Kim Skasi, who I've had the pleasure to work with very closely, very passionate about addressing women's health issues. Can we move along? So this year's winner, it's my utmost pleasure to announce Dr. Elizabeth Koenig. Liz graduated from Harvard Medical School in 1988. She did an internship and residency in internal medicine at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital. She did her fellowship in infectious disease at University of Colorado. She moved in 2016 to University of Arizona to become a chief of their Division of Infectious Diseases, where she also served as the ID Fellowship Program Director. Next slide, please. Liz has been actively involved within the ACTG for over 25 years. She spent the first 20 years of that 25 years as an active investigator in the Colorado AIDS Clinical Trial Unit. She has held multiple leadership positions within the ACTG, including being study chair. Sorry, I didn't list all the studies, being a protocol immunologist, as well as chair of the ACTG Immunology Research Agenda Committee in the early 2000s. She joined the WISC as a domestic investigator at large in 2012 and ultimately became the chair of the committee since 2007. This is a role that she's served so well. She's done such an amazing job, and I've had the honor of serving with her as her current vice chair. She's worked very closely with the other previous chairs, and she helped start the WISC interactive sessions at the ACTG meetings over the past 7 years, which have actually been quite fruitful. And the next slide, please. Liz has devoted much of her career to improving our understanding of HIV through her work in HIV immunopathogenesis, specifically in the influence of sex hormones and sex differences in HIV infection. In addition, she's been a leader in educating and mentoring future generations of ID and HIV providers, and to also improving women's health during her tenure as vice chair and chair of the WISC. Next slide, please. So it is with greatest pleasure that I hand this award to a great mentor, the most deserving person, Dr. Liz Connick. Congratulations, Liz.
Thank you very much. I'm really honored and humbled to receive this award. I actually only met Connie Wofsy once, but she gave me the best career advice I ever got. I was interviewing for infectious disease fellowships at the University of California, San Francisco. And I told her that Chip Schooley wanted me to go to University of Colorado for my fellowship. And she told me I was a fool if I didn't go. So I am very grateful to her for her advice. And we're all grateful to her for what she did for recognizing the role that women were playing in the HIV epidemic. I want to thank the ACTG leadership, particularly the current leadership, for what I view as their very robust support for women's health research. And I also want to thank my many friends and colleagues in the ACTG, particularly the members of the Women's Health Committee and the Underrepresented Populations Committee for their passionate enthusiasm and hard work on behalf of women's health. So thank you, thank all of you.
Great, congratulations, Liz. So well deserved, and it's such a great, it's so great to have you in the leadership and on the Scientific Agenda Steering Committee with your deep background in both lab science and clinical science, and as such a strong advocate for the importance of inclusion of women and women's health in our agenda. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on now. And it's my great pleasure to turn over the microphone to Orbit Clanton from the community group to talk about the Donna Davis and present the Donna Davis Award. Orbit.
Okay, hello everyone, can you hear me? It is my great pleasure to present this community award, the Donna Davis Award. Next slide. Who was Donna Davis? This award was created in behalf of Donna Davis in 2004. Donna was a really special person. She established her local adult ACTU Community Advisory Board in Nebraska health system. And she was also an active community public speaker starting all the way back in 1999. She was also elected the co-chair of the subcommittee in July of 2002. Donna unfortunately passed away from an AIDS-related illness on June the 14th, 2003 in Omaha, Nebraska. Next. But we honor her and the person who will receive this award, who happens to be a current member of the site staff, the NCC, SDAC, who has truly made significant contributions in the following areas. The awardee is someone who has made outstanding contribution in engaging the broader community, to participate in research, mentorship, education, but most of all, and I stress this, leadership. This person has demonstrated a cooperative spirit with colleagues and is committed to serving the ACTG. This person has also made significant contribution to the advancement of HIV to the community, has mentored people from the community, and also local and national community participation for people within the ACTG. Also, this person truly facilitates communications between the network leadership and the community. Next. This is just a list of past awardees. As you can see, each and every person on here within their own rights is well deserved. Next. And the awardee is Mary Allegra Cermak. Next. Everyone knows Allegra, but here are just some of her accomplishments. Allegra is truly the quintessential example of a true community HIV activist. Allegra has been part of the ACTG for over 20 years. And I don't know if many of you know, but she first started out as a community member and now serves as a staff member for NCC. Moreover, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the functioning of the network changed, as we all are aware of. There wasn't a template on how to facilitate a smooth transition to virtual operations of the network. However, Allegra found a way to accomplish this task. Allegra is also deeply committed to educating the community. She continuously shares her vast wealth of knowledge, and she participates in all levels of the ACTG conversation on numerous topics. Next. Continuing, Allegra has gone out of her way to seek community input above and beyond what is required. And I just want to share some examples. Allegra has been participating on numerous cab calls during this pandemic. Some of the calls required her to join in at 3 a.m. her time, Eastern time. Allegra quietly sends supplies to the community members who are in need at her own expense. And in time of loss, which we, the community, as well as the network, have experienced this year, Allegra would reach out with a loving card to express a caring word. Allegra is a true example of professional work ethics to the leadership, to staff, and to us, the community member. She always is encouraging members to speak up and to get engaged and take an active role in the ACTG. Next. Now, when we were putting this together, many of the community members wanted to share their personal thoughts. So here's just a few. Allegra is the glue that holds our global team together. She keeps us on an even keel. That's Jan from Cleveland. You are such an inspiration. I am grateful for all of the kindness and wisdom you shared with me over the years. Our world is a better place for having you in it. Love you. Liz Barr from Baltimore. She's also, one of the members had stated, polite, generous. She's a unified community, a global community, unified the global community as a family, which is so true. She is a symbol of pride to all sites globally with her gigantic effort to update us on ACTG research advocacy on all aspects of health. That is our own champion, and that is from Mustafa in Kenya. Next. This is Allegra spelled out, as you can see, for each of her initials in her name: attentive, leader, loyal, entertaining, generous, rapturous, artistic. That was created by Moses Supercharger from Uganda. We love you, Allegra. You are one of a kind. Ruben, who is a CSS member from Los Angeles. Beautiful, inside and out, always available to offer assistance, understanding, and a true leader. That is from Gail from Johns Hopkins. From the first time we spoke on the phone, Allegra has always been honest, caring, empathetic, and loving. But don't let that fool you. She is a quiet storm who will advocate for herself and the community with the fierceness of a mother lion while possessing the grace of a ballerina dancer. That's from Lamont, the UPC member from Nashville. Next. And finally, Allegra is the heart of the ACTG community. She is a perfect combination of guidance, support, friendship, reality check, and encouragement. She truly believes in the potential and power of the community, that all voices have value. Many of us, including myself, are indebted to Allegra for her role in helping us to grow into leaders capable of positively impacting the world. She is truly the wind beneath my wings. Submitted by Mariniki and Lionel, past community co-chairs. And finally, the challenge of leadership is to be strong, but not rude. Be kind, but not weak. Be bold, but not bully. Be thoughtful, but not lazy. Be humble, but not tidy. Be proud, but not arrogant. Have humor without folly. Our chief want is someone who will inspire us to be what we know we can be. And that truly is Allegra, submitted by Esther and myself, the current ACTG community chairs. Next. We love you, Allegra, from the ACTG community. Thank you. And here is your award. And just before Allegra speaks, the community really tried their best to surprise her. But as I just went through her qualities and her dedication, that was not an easy task. Now, Allegra.
Hi, everybody. Well, thank you, Orbit, and thank you to all the community. I'm very honored. I don't know how many of you remember Donna Davis, but she was always very grateful to the staff at her site because she didn't think that she could be an activist. They all told her, yes, you can. And I think that that's been something that the ACTG really should claim as a historical event, that community became part of research. That's where it started in the ACTG, and it's because we had the support of staff members. We had doctors, nurses, data managers, everyone helping the community. And I think that's something that that makes the ACTG unique and that other networks really learn from. I've really enjoyed working with the community, and I think they know that. I think they know I love them. For a lot of community members over the years, this became a second family, especially back in the day when there was a great deal more stigma. And that's something that the network can be really proud of. So I'd love to thank the community, but I also want to thank all the staff members who have made sure that the community is heard and has an opportunity to speak at all times. And those of you who don't know, the community and I share poetry quite a bit. So just the last line of a Robert Frost poem, men work together, whether they work together or apart. And I think that that's what the community has proven in the ACTG. So thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you, Orbit, and congratulations to Allegra and to all of the awardees today. I think in this virtual world that we're in, it's unfortunate that we can't be together, but I think it's great that we've had this time to just recognize the importance of the roles that people play. And I think throughout all of the awardees today, there's a theme of the importance of mentorship, and it permeates throughout the ACTG. We are all in this together, and we are all here to support each other. And I think we've really seen that highlighted in the work of so many people today. So I want to thank everybody for joining and congratulate all the awardees, and look forward to our continued work together as we move towards our new grant cycle, which, although we don't have the formal notice yet, is to begin on December 1st. So to everybody who's been involved in the whole process of recompeting the network, I think it was a year ago today or tomorrow that we all submitted our applications to continue as sites. We're almost there, and we really have a lot to do, and look forward to, on behalf of all the leadership, of working with you all into the future. So congratulations and thanks again.
Thank you, Judy.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Judy.
Judy. Congratulations, everyone.
Thank you.
Terrific.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.